Hey, young historians, Mr. Moran here, and today we're going to learn about the first Americans and when and how did they first arrive. But before we start this reading assignment, there are some key terms I want you to know. The first term is first Americans. This term relates to the first people who arrived in North and South American continents. The other term is called the Clovis weapon. The oldest, and this one is the oldest flint tool associated with North American Clovis culture or the Clovis people. Right now you don't know what this means, but you will later on. The other term is kelp. And a kelp is a large brown seaweed that typically has a long tough stalk with a broad frond divided into strips. And if any of you have traveled or gone to the Oregon coast at certain times of the day or year, you'll see kelp kind of wash up on the shore. And before we start, there's some questions I want you to be able to answer after we're done reading. And I like to think these questions as giving you the purpose to read, because sometimes if I just say read something, you don't know what the point of the reading assignment is. So here is the point of the reading assignment. I want you to be able to answer these questions. First, when and where did the first Americans come from? Number two, what is the prevailing theory to this question? Prevailing is the most realistic or most likely theory to answer this question. And number three, what theory do you most agree with? There's going to be a couple ideas that are going to be floated across here. Now, this article that I created, it's derived from an article written by Simon Worrell from the National Geographic article. So what that means is probably 75% of it's from his article, and I added or changed some. So I'm giving this man credit for most of this work. So how did the first Americans arrive in North America? The first Americans' arrival is up for debate because more evidence is found as time goes on. Right now, experts believe people arrived in North America 15,000 years ago, but others say the first people arrived 20,000 years ago. No matter, there isn't a specific arrival date. The date of 15,000 years ago is based upon sites where fire pits were discovered, burned bones, work stones that have been turned into scrapers, hammers, and spear points. When you go back further in time, evidence of mammoths bones that have been shattered open in a way that is characteristic of humans. So they found this evidence, they've carbon dated it, and it's about 15,000 years. Before we continue, let's look at this map here. If you look closely at this, you can see that the dark brownish parts might look familiar. This is Alaska in North America, and this is modern day Russia. But if you look, there's this light tannish color, and this is a representation when the ocean levels were lower because the earth was colder and a lot of the water, earth's water, was locked up in ice. And because there was less water in the ocean, the water levels were lower, and actually 15 to 20,000 years ago, there was this land bridge here, and so Alaska and Russia was actually connected here. And you can see with these lighter colors how scientists believe that these land masses were connected, and this is important for one of the theories we're going to talk about. How did humans arrive in North America? The easiest way to get to North America is by foot. The Bering Land Bridge is an old theory because that's the clearest connection between Asia and North America. The land bridge appears when ice is locked up on land and sea levels drop. It's the only place where you could walk from Asia to North America. And again, if you look here, that's very clear here. And then in this other map, it just shows the people and when they traveled and how far they went. So once they crossed the land bridge, they went through North America, Central America, and clear on down to South America. And in this map here, you can see there's two immigration periods. You have the Inuit migration and the earlier migration. So this happened first and the Inuits happened second. But even with the land bridge, once the first Americans arrived, they still needed to cross 5 million square miles of ice. This is why some people believe coastal migration occurred when people moving up and down the coast from Japan and Korea using boats. So some people are saying, maybe they didn't come over here by land, but maybe they came by boats. And here's where Japan is right now, and there's Korea right here. So they're saying that maybe they went by ocean along the shore here. To continue with the article right here, it says, it makes sense that people migrated along the coast, down Alaska and British Columbia to Washington and Oregon. This is the most realistic way into North America because of what they call the Kelp Highway. During the Ice Age, this coast was continuous all the way to the tip of South America. But the coast is now underwater, so any evidence of boats and people moving along the route is underwater. So if you go back to this map, what they're saying is, some people believe is from Japan and Korea, people travel along in kayaks or boats along the shore here. And the reason why this, what they thought was very doable, is because of all the kelp that was there, and people can eat kelp. And so as they travel, they could, pick up the kelp and eat it. And so they could travel as they're eating. And it said that they traveled all the way down to South America. But there's no evidence, go back to this, sorry, but there's very, very little evidence of this. Because why? Well, because remember, the ocean levels were lower, and if they had any like fire pits or evidence of camping or anything like that, of camps, it's underwater or has been washed away. The Atlantic crossing and the Clovis people might suggest a European origin. This is a big debate. That people some 13,500 years ago were making distinct tools that can be found all over the Americas, including South Central Oregon's Paisley Cave. So right here in Oregon, they found some of these Clovis weapons. This is a new style weaponry, finely crafted, relatively flat spear points no thicker than an envelope, requiring unique skills and therefore supports another theory. For a long time, the Clovis people were seen as the first people. Some scientists have tried to trace them back to the Bering Land Bridge. So this Bering Land Bridge, to look back at the map here, this is what we're calling the Bering Land Bridge. Okay. Still, more evidence just does not support this. Others have tried to trace the first Americans to an Atlantic arrival by Europeans around 20,000 years ago. The Clovis weapons found along the eastern United States are identical to ones found in Spain and southern France. So it looks like people were crossing the Atlantic, hunting along the ice packs, following ice flows with skin boats, and arriving in Maryland, modern-day Maryland and Virginia. So if you look at our map here, sorry for flipping back and forth, what they're saying is some people think that maybe you don't see Europe over here, but maybe people first came from Europe over here because they found the Clovis weapons in Virginia and Maryland, and they also found them in Spain and France, identical weapons. But some Native American tribes flatly reject the idea of migration from somewhere else. Some of the first Americans have creation stories about coming out of the ground. These creation stories explain how they arrived in North America from coming out of caves or up through springs or underground sources. Montana's Blackfoot tradition holds that the first Indians lived in another side of the ocean, but their creator decided to take them to a better place. So he brought them over the ice to the far north, the account reads. Another creation story includes the Hopi people of Arizona, They believe their ancestors had to travel through 3 worlds, finally crossing the ocean eastward to a new and final new world. The Oklahoma's Tuskegee people believed the Great Spirit chose them to be the first to live on the earth. Although these creation stories are not scientific, they're more based on religion or faith, but they should not be dismissed. They give us a new view into another culture and what it means to be in a place for a very long time. So, where did the first Americans come from, and when did they arrive in North America? So that's what we're trying to answer here, right? There are many theories about the arrival of the first Americans, but the prevailing theory, or the main theory, or the realistic theory is that the first Americans came to North America through a land bridge located between modern-day Russia and Alaska about 15,000 years ago. But it is important to understand the arrival of the first Americans, it was not a singular event, meaning it wasn't like, oh, it happened on this day and only on this year. It included many groups, many different languages, and technologies arriving at different times from different directions, not just one group at one time. It is this complex story of many people with many different stories. Finally, with more information and more archaeological artifacts, this might change, so you never know. So we've completed reading this article together. Now I need you to answer some of those questions in the reading guide. Thanks for listening. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Bye.